on. So basically the city is located in the south, so it'll take me 1 hour to get to the seaside, so I'm really lucky man. However, it'll take me 20 hours to get to the mountains, and last weekend I visited Vitaliy mountains. It took me around 50 minutes, so you're lucky too. Okay guys, I propose to start our QA talk. So you came here to talk, so I expect you to raise some questions, to share your experience, and I suppose that you will gain some experience from my lecture. So let's start. Today we are going to talk about how to drive a big project to success with only one dev and one tester. So basically, I will tell you a story about a real project and the situation I have forced with. So I believe some of you already faced with such situation when there is a budgeting limitation from the customer side and it is needed to make a decrease of the team. So some of you might face it in the future, and some of you might take into consideration the proposition about such situation right now. I don't know for sure. So I believe that I can share my experience regarding this situation, and I hope that you will be able to take this suggestion into consideration in your decision making in the future. So let's start. So today we are going to cover the following points. So I will give you some flashback, the story of how we gained the project. So then small team size challenges, PM role, who gets it, planning versus to know planning, pros and cons, does continuous integration matters, how to monitor the processes, how to plan the regression testing, and finally how to report an iteration status. So let our story begin. So once upon a time, customer decided to change the vendor. So basically, this is how we get a new project. There were a lot of stuff of pre-sales and sales activities, so but it is out of scope of our lecture. So we had the following income. System was already in production, 5 years of previous development, system was not very stable, and poor performance was highlighted as one of the upcoming things. So basically we signed off a fixed price contract to address the first point. The first problem statement is that the system was not very stable. So we performed our work, we got the acceptance on it, we successfully signed off the second fixed price contract to address the second problem statements, it's poor performance. So during implementation of this phase, we established a really confident communication channel with our customers, and after we got approval on second phase, we actually signed off the dedicated team contract and start performing as a dedicated team. So it means like our customer buys us as resources, not as a final product or something like this. So, and we started with the average team sizes. So as far as I remember, it was 4 devs, 2 QAs and 1 PM. And we did our work for some time, and actually we thought like it was a success story and everything is good, but we faced with the constraint from the customer side. Basically it was the budgeting constraint, and we were in a situation that we need to decrease the team size. So our customer suggested to leave only 2 persons there, and basically from that moment we need to deal with that somehow. So I want to go a bit ahead and ensure you that now, since 3 years passed, we continue working with this customer. Apart from the support and maintenance task, we managed to perform significant increment of development. So we continue producing development in this project. So, but let's overview it step by step. So the first thing is the small team size challenges. We faced with the several problems. So the first one was demotivation. So we had a dream team, everything was good. We established a really good communication between the team. Even more, our team was located in the same open space. So we handled the request very fast. It's like, oh man, can you fix this bug? I don't want to raise it to the Jira. And you've got the fix as it is. It was very comfortable and really the zone of comfort. Well, another thing that demotivated us is now we are part of a small team and a professional growth seems a bit slower. We also knew that performance of the team will be lower because 6 persons performs real big work, and if we are talking about 2 persons only, so you can calculate it. Okay, another thing is a lack of coordination experience within the team. So I was in a position of QA lead then, and developer who stayed was in a position of development lead. So we did some work on coordination because we need to guide our guys how to develop efficiently, how to test efficiently, how to plan work and move in one direction. So, and we knew that from this moment it will be lack of it. Someone should be delegated with the PM activities because we need to run meetings, run demonstrations, preparing daily reports, communication with the customer, planning of development and QA activities. So someone should be delegated with this stuff. And yeah, one more thing is how to plan a proper vacation if there are 2 of us. So it's like it seems at that moment impossible. So it was a really constraint from our side and we a bit demotivated. But we established the following action plan. Actually, we have a list of problems, we need to solve them. So what is the action plan? We revised the toolkit. If we are using our infrastructure in an efficient way, so, and if tools that we're using give us benefit versus the complexity of using these tools. So you don't need to be a hostage of a tool. If it takes you a lot of time to manage processes within the tools, so you should skip these tools and choose another one. It shouldn't take you a lot of time. So then it goes the motivation speech from our delivery managers and engagement managers. So these guys really know what to say, because after the speech, well, I was encouraged and it seems like it was a challenge for me. I wanted to participate in such a small team. So, and then we established several sessions with the customer to somehow manage the expectation, because the performance of the team will be really not so big as it was before. So, and you know, like customer always thinks in terms of expectations. So we need to manage this somehow. So we actually approved the plan we wanted to go with the customers. It wasn't one session. It was, as far as I remember, 3 sessions, like 1 hour session for each time. But we agree on this. And the next point we discussed is the PM role. So we just sit down and prepare a list of things that PM on our project should be handled. So we actually noted such things like running meetings with the customers, so on a daily basis, and some feature demos or sprint demos. Reporting, we need to prepare written reports on a daily basis and once in a sprint. Sprint planning, tracking project progress, billing stuff, coordination within 2 of us, because we need to move in one direction. Motivation, we do not need to be upset, because if there is a lack of motivation, we won't be able to succeed. And orientation means like we need to communicate with our customer, and we need to know in what direction his business will move. So once we define these prerequisites, we start to think who will get this role. So basically we take into consideration personal characteristics, personal desires, and thought about efficiency to spend development time versus to QA time. So we agreed to go with the approach of QA plus part-time PM as one person. Why don't we dedicate part-time PM as an investment? So during our second phase of performance stabilization, we already invested some efforts to establish a really good relationship between us as the vendor and our customer. So, and since our customer cut off the budget, our company doesn't want to invest more. So that's why it was decided that someone will be delegated with this role. So, and as a QA, I was in a position of QA. I get this extra things to do. So, once we establish these processes, we go and revise actually continuous integration, because it really matters. It really matters in terms of limited resources. So basically, continuous integration can build and deploy solution. It can fiddle out errors like compilation errors, lack of disk space on the environment you want to deploy a solution, connectivity problems with control version system. It will define when unit tests failed, integration test failed, functional test failed if exists, and so on. So basically we splitted our environments between three. It was a dev environment, test environment, and release environment. So each time developer commit a code to control version system, we use SVN by the way, each time he commit, so continuous integration look into the SVN, and if there is some new code, it start building the application. Then it tries to deploy it to the environment, run unit tests and integration test. So we also revise the integration tests, because we have a web application with a lot of integrations, a lot of third-party APIs, our own API, and so on. So it's the first check. Another one is a test environment. If it is okay, we can trigger test environment. So it is triggered by request. It's not with each commit. So this environment assigned to a tester, and tester performs functional tests and non-functional tests in this environment. Why it is not uploaded automatically when some code is changed? So because a developer can commit really frequently. So it means like once a day, 10 times a day, and so on. And it will mean that this environment will be redeployed 10 times. That will affect testers' work. So just for example, tester prepared some test data and entered everything in the system. And developer commits something and ruin all this stuff. So that's why testers wait for a lot of tickets to resolve that in irresolved status, then triggers update on his environment, and performs functional tests and non-functional tests. So once everything is done within the version, so we are ready to release it somewhere. But we cannot go to the production, because our new functionality can ruin all the stuff that we developed prior. So we need to ensure that everything that was done earlier is functioning and okay. So we need to perform a regression testing. So once we have everything done here, in terms of our version, we perform a code freeze. We do a branch and deploy a release branch. Here we perform a regression testing. So this all stuff is our testing environment. If it is, if regression pass, so we can go to a production. So let's take a look at a wider landscape. So here it is. Within a version, that means release, we have many sprints, many builds. So each build we perform integration testing and unit testing. Within the builds we perform feature testing, bug fix verification. Within many sprints we perform functional testing and non-functional testing. And within the release version we perform regression and performance check. This is stuff holds on our test servers. And this is integrated to our continuous integration. So it means like these processes are automated, and it is really helpful to not spend a lot of time to do it manually. But we have some gaps here to make a release to production. So we have a production servers with two instances of our applications. The first one is staging, another is production. So it's public production and it is hidden from public. But why it is set up? Our test server has certain configuration, has certain hardware, has certain connectivity and networking, and production server can be a bit different. So in order to move something to production, we need to test it somewhere on the same server. So when regression is done and everything is fine, we perform the manual deploy to the staging environment. So it not take us a long of time. It's like a 6 hours development plus QA time to perform a release to the staging. So our releases are not so frequent. To prepare something for production, we actually spend 3 or 4 months, because there are 2 of us, and to make some significant increment of development, we need to spend a bigger timeline. So that's why we do it manually. Best practices tells us that it is efficient to do it with continuous integration as well. But we have also considered some security points, like we need to expose another port to be able continuous integration to deploy it there. So now it is manually. When we upload a code on a staging environment, so we actually perform a smoke test to ensure that everything is fine and new configuration doesn't broke anything there. Then perform a sanity check, so it shows us if the new code is delivered there. So if everything is fine here, we move to production and perform a smoke test, just to be sure that, because it is 2 different instances, web instances, and production can have another web config file and so on, so on, so on. That's why a smoke test is efficient here. So basically, this is all the stuff we are performing in our project. So let's go next. Can a project go without CI? Definitely yes, it can. I have another projects which goes without CI. So, but what are the pros of this process? What are advantages? You don't need to bother with the CI setting up, because it might take you some time. You don't need to request additional virtual machine for the CI to be installed and then maintain it. So it also requires some efforts to spend. What are the cons of this? Each time you want to build and deploy a project, you need to ask a developer. So, and for example, I did 3 or 4 deployment via continuous integration by myself each day. So it means like I need to ask a developer 4 times to deploy something to be able to test. So, and it affects the development time. So we are in a risk that we cannot couple with the sprint scope. And another thing is like a switching between tasks. So did you try to switch your developer from task to task? he's very nervous about that because it's really complicated for developers to switch between them. So you also spend here a lot of time because he goes for a coffee, he goes to smoke something, cigarette, and I don't know, and we're spending a lot of time here. So is it acceptable in the situation of limited resources to not have CI? I would say no. Guys, if you have any questions, if you have any experience, another experience with continuous integration, so you can share it and ask me questions. So, but meanwhile, I will go to the next one. So plan versus to no planning. So when we got a situation when we stayed two, so it was two of us, we continued the ceremony of sprint planning. So with the understanding that in the Scrum, you cannot change the scope of the sprint. So we planned it appropriately, we estimated it, and notified our customer that we are committing that the scope will be done within the sprint. So, but we faced with the period when customer pulls in task to the sprint, regardless of this sprint planning. So, and because it is really in priority for him, so and he pays us money and he doesn't understand why we can go with this. Number of such requests increased, and we were in a situation that we need to manage it somehow. We need to replan it because we already committed that some scope will be delivered. We need to replan something. We need to push something out from the sprint because our customer pulls in there. And it was wasting of time, a lot of planning and not so much in progress of development. At some point, it seems like Kanban is better here, because no estimation, you do task, depends on the priority and so on and so on. Well, and Scrum started taking a lot of time. So we thought about switching to Kanban. Then it was a period of no serious planning. Actually, tasks were pulled based on a priority. A lot of task was also put by a customer in the middle of the sprint and closer to the end of the sprint. So it's definitely Kanban. So we suggested him to switch, but customer required estimation of the tasks and timeline. He wanted to know what will happen with his product in 3 months. Well, I wasn't able to answer him because we didn't have any serious planning. So we have some sessions with the customer. We justified in what cases we can answer his questions. So we, and only then we return to planning once again. So basically I prefer to have some plan versus to not having plan at all. So why it is so? We started estimation and proper sprint planning. The customer stopped pull something to the sprint. Well, it still happens. In a case of customer needs some patch on the production, so he pulls something in, and yeah, we communicate to the customer. We told him that something will be pushed out, and so on and so on. And we return to the times when good planning is completed by the end of the sprint, which shows us the progress and satisfaction actually, because we delivered everything we promised. So the motivation goes up. So that's why I prefer planning. So, okay, another block will be processes monitoring. So we faced with the situation that customer was very busy actually, and at some time he came to us and told, "Hey guys, what are you doing? I think that you spend a lot of efforts. I think you can manage it more faster. And I don't know how you report the time," and so on and so on. Some nervous from his side or something like this. So we established more transparent processes. So we gained him to participate in the sprint planning meeting. So each Monday we perform this sprint planning. We invite a customer, we make an estimation of tasks, and we are committing on the scope of the sprint. So basically we do estimation in hours, not in the story points, because it's, well, it doesn't fit our project. I don't know why, but we don't like user stories, story points, sorry. Yeah. Once we committed under the sprint scope, so customer already know what we are going to deliver. So it is good practice. Another one, I'm sharing on a daily core our sprint board and visualizing the process, what we are actually doing right now, how much it will take us to finish it, what we did during the last day, and what we are going to do next. So it gives our customer confidence that everything is on plan and everything is scheduled. So moreover, we have another metric like burn down chart. I believe you use it in your projects as well. So burn down really shows whether we are behind the plan, on schedule, or underestimated things and don't fit the plan actually. Here is the example of one of our sprint burn down. Could someone tell, did we deliver everything we promised? No answer? Okay, so basically when we are following the trend, it means like we are on a schedule. Somewhere here we burned more, it means like we overestimated something and we did it faster. So, but at some point some task was really complicated that we previously expected, and we just move above the trend line. So it means like we spent more hours on it than we planned. So now we are behind the plan. It means like till the end of the sprint we won't be able to deliver everything that we expected. So here goes the weekend and another week of the sprint, so 2-week sprints. And at the end we see that we didn't burn out some efforts. So it means like one task didn't fit the sprint. Another thing you can show to have more transparency in your processes and to gain more confidence with your client is requirements coverage. So within the sprint you have requirements to implement, whether it is user stories, whether it is features, whether it is improvements or bug fixes. So, and if it is requirement, you can show test coverage. So each requirement is covered with the appropriate test cases. Due to these test cases, we fiddle out some bugs and so on, so on, so on. So it's obfuscated data because it's a real project data. Just mark it out. So another thing is you should track your time, because at any point, a customer came to you and ask, oh, what did you do on Tuesday, for example? Why do you spend a lot of time on that task and so on, so on? So basically, I perform this operation on a daily basis. I check whether everyone logs appropriate time on the tasks. So I just generated the report on my project and see that no one logs time on the 2nd of January. So it means like no one work here. And in case I know that it is a working day, so I go to a developer and ask why you didn't log the time here. So you should track it. I suggest to track this metrics as well. It really helps. And apart from the processes inside of the project, you also need to track your company processes, because you use infrastructure of your company, you use the resources of your company, and you need basically to ensure that everything is accessible and available, to not spend a lot of time. Well, for example, our virtual machine with continuous integration go down. So it means like me as a tester can deploy to the test environment and can verify bugs or improvement, so downtime. So we need to go to admin and then ask them to fix it. You need to ensure that your executives are aware of the project status and client satisfactions. So you need to know that your DMs and DMs watching you. You need to be aware of billing and do it on time. Also vacation requests and grading and all the stuff that is established inside your company. So you should also track it as a processes. So the next thing I will talk about is the regression testing. So how to plan it in terms you have only one tester on the project. So we have a not really good situation because we do not have automation on our project. And the project contains more than 4,000 test cases. Could you imagine how much time it will take me to perform it manually? I would say more than a month. So it will be a quite expensive exercise for our customer to spend 1 month to perform a full regression. So it is not really efficient when you don't have automation at all. So I suggest to, if you are in charge of all the processes inside your project, to communicate to the customer, and if they do not have such strict constraints with the budgeting, try to sell this automation to the project. So in our case, we are budgeting limited and it is not applicable to implement inside of our project. We need to invest it as DataArt, and no one wants to invest till we get the confidence that we can perform upsell somewhere in the future. So let's think a bit of what to do when you have to perform a regression. You have a lot of test cases, but you have limited resources. And the client for sure don't want to spend more than a week on the regression testing. So no automation leads to the fact that full regression before release is really expensive. So we agreed on this point. Yeah. Revising the components that can be affected by the new functionality helps to stick to the target vector of testing. So you know that new functionality interacts with, for example, 4 components in the system that were previously developed. So you need to include these components to the regression testing. You can skip another components, but this one should be included for sure. The next step is basically you need to take a look on the priority of the test cases, because each component can contain a lot of. So the biggest component in my project is almost 700 test cases, as far as I remember. It's also take a lot of time. So based on priority, you need to select some set from that. It also makes your test set smaller, but you should be aware that there is still a need in critical path testing, because your application, your system should perform the business logic, and in case even if you don't touch these components during your new functionality implementation, you should perform a verification on a critical path, the main functionality. It should work anyway. Without it, you can't say that regression is done. So in such approach, you limit the test set you run on the regression, and you can fit basically 1 week or 2 weeks, depends on the scope you want to deliver to the production. So when you agree on this approach, when you select the test cases, we can go to implementation. So you need to create test runs or test executions. You need to make some estimation on them. You need to perform this regression testing, basically report regression on a daily basis to see how it is going. So basically burn down chart helps this a lot. So I was asked by my customer whether we are fit this certain date with the regression testing. So I build a breakdown chart and track it on a daily basis. And at some point, the verification goes faster than it was planned initially. So I told my customer that I can couple with these 2 days prior they estimated. And he was really happy about that. So let's go next. Another point that you need to consider, and it is really important to report the sprint status. So basically you need to perform a sprint demo. You need to invite your customer to the sprint demo and be aware that customer can invite someone from his side, so another stakeholders, to this meeting. You need to know that you need to perform a demo in such an order that you can release each stakeholder assigned to the appropriate component by the end of your demonstration, for example, because everyone is busy, everyone is highly paid, and you don't need to waste their time. So gathering a lot of people, but they do not somehow relate to this functionality. So you should keep that in mind. So you need to gain the customer's feedback on this sprint demo, because customer thinks in terms of expectation, and you and your developer thinks in terms of requirements. And expectations are in minds of our clients. And it is often case when their expectations are not relevant to what we did. So to avoid such a situation, you need this demonstration. So, and based on the results of this demonstration, you can manage the expectation. You see the mood of your customer, whether he's happy or not, and so on and so on. And what action points you can gain from this. So you need to, if he is not very happy, you need to establish some action plan, and you need to eliminate these points. So to the next demo. And one of the things is a customer training session. So he sees this functionality for the first time, and you guide him through the system. So how it is working, and really gives him control maybe, and he can perform some tests on his own. So apart from the demonstration, you should also prepare a written sprint report. So, and list all the features being implemented, bug fix being introduced, and ensure that all the interested stakeholders are included to this email, and your company executives are included as well. So here's the example of the sprint template, sprint wrapper template that I sent to the customer. So you need to provide the executive summary, so the brief description of deliverables. Basically, the top managers, executives from the customer side and from our side reads only this one. And our CTO, for example, on the customer side reads also a body. So I propose to stick with the following instruction, like the following improvements were implemented, the following bugs fixes were introduced, the following tasks were implemented, items not completed with the sprint, and the reason why it happens so. And no issues. So because in case your customer will find something bug in the system, so he will be really not happy, and if it is a known issue and you provided this information, so you can a bit mitigate this risk. So that's briefly it about the situation on our project and how we managed actually to establish the processes inside. So, and I want to give you some summary here. Big project can be run with one developer and one QA, for sure. Continuous integration matters. Automation is really important. So combining QA and PM position is not efficient in terms of PM-oriented professional growth. So I would suggest, if you want to move to a PM, so try to find an option to be a full-time PM, but not split your responsibilities between two positions. because you need to take a look on a project like a project manager. You need to make some decisions. And if you also test here project, it can somehow affect your project management decisions. So, and going to PM goes really slow when you're combining QA and PM. So but it is an option to move from engineer to management. It's one of the options, basically. I'm sure that you have an examples of another options, like some opportunity and someone is supervising you and you are fully dedicated PM. And another options to go from engineer to PM is like to combine two positions in such a cases. So guys, I think I'm done with my report. So do you have any questions, or maybe you can share your experience or something that I just said not working for your project? So I believe everyone has its own experience, its own project. I'm not pretending that it is instruction how to perform in each particular situation, but it's just experience that I faced with and I want to share it with you. Oh, okay. Guys, do you have any questions? Go ahead. Don't be so shy. Okay, go. Oh, before signing a contract with the customer, you need to highlight these dependencies, actually. It's like assumption that client provides us everything we need to start the work. In other cases, we won't be able to start this work. So in case we do not have ability to have own test servers, like our company doesn't allow us to dedicate some virtual machines and so on and so on, you can request it on the client side. Yeah.
When you write a product which you can upload in a system where customer can be working with Google or other system, how you need to share with the customer?
Okay, just 1 second. Lubo, should I give a microphone yet to Oh, okay. Can you please repeat the question to the microphone?
Okay. I will repeat the question. Excuse me, I forgot my question. It's interesting what I would like to ask. If you write a product, how I should share the product with the customer if I don't use cloud system where customer need to log in with Gmail or something, some other email. How I should share with the customer?
Questions. So basically, this question related to the infrastructure. So like development. So when developer produce code, he commits it to the system control version. So it's SVN or Git. You can give access to the version control system to the customer, and customer can download it and build it on his own. Basically, it's one of the options that you can provide. Let me think about some other options here. So you also pointed some Gmail or cloud solutions.
Let's say I'll give you a real example. I'm writing on a Java.
Okay.
Java needs Java real-time machine. Customer don't have a real-time machine. How I should share with the customer?
You're talking about about delivery of the product.
I'm writing on my Java machine. I'm writing a
Okay.
Real Java machine. Customer doesn't have something like this.
Uh, s- so in this option, you should actually stick to the sharing the source code. So I believe it will work. In other cases, you can actually. So it also relate to the contract, how to deliver a product. So you should agree with the customer if he is okay with this or not. Otherwise, to book some server on a cloud and go with its solution to deploy it. And I don't think that it costs too much, like $150 per month for users some servers there.
Thinking about cloud machine based on Java, but only Oracle can some project Oracle cloud decision is the decision, but
Mhm.
it's not cheap. It's expensive decision.
You can also dig into the direction whether Amazon, for example, provides already installed virtual machines for these purposes. I think this direction will be efficient as well. Okay, yeah. Any other questions? You prepared some more?
I will look my notes, and if someone have a question, I will look my notes and I will take it if I can.
Okay, guys. Any other questions? Yep. Oh, okay, microphone.
First, thanks for sharing this interesting story. It's not just a successfully delivered project, but interesting story. Thanks. I have a question. Which actions you consider as unique, which you took in this particular approach when you had only one developer and one QA, which you wouldn't actions, I mean, take in a regular project where which is regularly staffed, correctly staffed, I mean. What is the unique? Because there is something, the setup is different, the project is big, it's clear that one developer, one QA is not enough, but what made the project successful? What is this uniqueness which you introduced in the project in order still to make it successful even with not proper setup?
Thank you for your question. Basically, I think that this story can be a common for another participants. So I think, yeah, I think so. But we established a really unique communication with our client. So we faced with some problems of getting the requirements from him. We expect him to act like a product owner, but actually he's very busy and doesn't provide us the real backlog that we need to introduce. So I think we established unique communication and unique retrieving of their requirements through their demonstrations and verbal conversation, because in the written form it goes really bad. Another unique thing is a communication between me and developer. We are located in the same place, and we set an efficient framework and use our limited resources in efficient way. So we don't waste time, and we try to address every single problem statements from our customers. And when he's satisfied, our motivation goes up, and I think that's the main 2 points we have from unique perspective. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your question, please. Okay. We need another one microphone.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first question is, in the end, was the customer satisfied from the product or the service you delivered? And my second question is, how did the customer react when you had to decrease the number of workers on this project? And did you increase the time frame of delivering the product in the end? So, for example, the customer had a limited budget, right? And you only had to have 2 people involved in this project. Did you have to extend the deadline of the project? Yeah, sure. And the customer was satisfied with that, right?
microphone. So, yeah, I've thought about decreasing of the team performance because there are two of us. It means like we cannot produce 300 hours per sprint as it was before. We can produce only 80 hours of development and 80 hours of QA, but not pure development and not pure QA, because we need to participate in the demonstration, we need to communicate to the customer, we need to write some emails and establish some processes. So it means like 6 hours per day for development and 5-6 hours for QA. So we have at the start of this changing, we had 3 sessions with the customer to manage this expectation. We have 3 calls with a duration 1 hour and explain why development will go slower. So I think he understands it, but we need to formalize this process and we need to notify him that it will be so, because it's like it will be scalable and downgrade. Yep. And another question from your side, yeah? Yeah, for sure. We do not have frequent releases, but what we deliver to production is really important for our client and his customers. They are satisfied, so our customer is satisfied as well. So, another questions?
Thank you. How customer receive or what time to give us to make the project? What is the limit of time of the process?
Oh, it's like an eternity project. It's a dedicated team. It means like it can finish when a client will struggle from budgeting, or the system we are developing won't get profit for the customer. So so he wants something to do in 2 days, and we estimate it as 5 days. Well, it won't be done in 2 days, because our estimates are quite accurate, because we are already 3 years in this project, and we know the system and know what is behind of it. And if we give estimate like 5 days, it's really weird if he will ask us to perform it like for 2 days. We can ask for overtimes or involve someone else, but you need to be aware that new person knowledge transfer session is needed for a new person. It won't take 2 days. It will take 2 days only to get him familiar with the task he need to perform, something like this. Well. Yeah, guys, any other question? I saw a hand from that corner. Oh, okay.
So you spent a lot of time talking about unit tests and integration tests. Did the project you adopted already have these, because it was already 5 years in production? Or did you have to start from scratch? And what would you do if you had to start from scratch?
Okay, so we got the project where unit tests were absent. So basically all the stuff we introduced into the project, so the code we produced, we cover it with the unit tested. We start with this approach. And when we need to investigate another component, we were learning with the system. And when we need to investigate another component, we saw the interaction and corrected the code. We adopted it from the ASP forms to MVC, and also cover it with the unit test and integration tests. So I won't say that we have a 100% coverage of all the code, because the system quite large and it is not enough time to spend on covering all the previous functionality with the unit tests, even when we had an average size team, but we try to keep it on track, and it's something like 35 or 55% covered with this. Okay, guys. Sorry, what? Previously, before we signed the contracts, not. We didn't know about this project at all. So we learned it for 3 years, and even it's funny thing that we can even now face with some functions that we didn't know about before. To develop what? Unit tests. So basically we included this estimation to the task we need to perform. So I don't know for sure how much time in hours need to perform a unit test on a task. 1, 2
months, 3 months.
Oh, it wasn't so complex approach to stop development and cover everything with unit tests. It was ongoing, like we deal with this functionality, we cover this with the unit tests and see the interaction of this component with another and cover with integration tests. So that's how we grow the network. But we still do not have 100% coverage. Yep. Okay, another questions, guys? It is late in the evening, so you're tired, yeah? Okay, so if there are no questions, so thank you very much for your attention, for your time. I hope it will help you to make a decision in your future, facing with the same situation, maybe a similar situation. So hope you will get some knowledge from this. Thank you very much.